All right. Hello and welcome to this episode. In this episode, I want to talk about OCD Awareness Week and really talk about, not only becoming aware of OCD and anxiety, but also becoming aware of recovery and really even talking about OCD Recovery Awareness Week. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds. And really, when it comes to the idea of OCD Awareness Week, I have a couple thoughts that I just like to share. And before we dive in, we really would appreciate your support by liking and subscribing, as well as leaving a comment or a review on iTunes. All that would really help the show. And if you would help us out with that, I'd really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and talk about OCD Awareness Week and just some practical thoughts on it. So when we talk about OCD Awareness Week, obviously spreading awareness of mental health and people that like what OCD is, what anxiety is, what that does is that really helps people who are struggling, that don't know what they're struggling with, potentially find a path to recovery. Because one of the things about mental health is that while someone might know internally something's not right, or something's off, right? It doesn't mean they know what that is. And when you're really lost in that wheel of OCD or that loop, the thing is that no one ever really understands that it's OCD that they're stuck in, because they see it as what they're afraid of as the actual problem. For instance, they might see it as a germ problem or a driving problem, or an intrusive thought problem, or you can go on the whole gamut of all the different subtypes. And if you understand the problem like that, you're never going to seek help for OCD, especially things like with scrupulosity and religious OCD, right? So spreading awareness, what that does is that once people understand that there's this, call it a manifestation of stress, where you can run into these loops, and we call that OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. The thing about it is that now that person now understands what they're dealing with, and therefore what they can do is start to take steps to address it. And this is really where I get excited about it, because this is what I think this week should be focused on even more. Yes, it's like, of course, we want to spread the awareness of what it is to help people who don't understand what they're struggling with, obviously get to the right resources and help. But what the message that I really want to stress this week is OCD recovery. And so, like, if you ask me what I'm quote unquote celebrating this week, it's OCD Recovery Week. And because the message that really needs to be sent to people that are struggling is that recovery is possible, not just for some people, for anyone struggling. Because let's look at it, right? It's like, if you're struggling with OCD, you're experiencing, kind of the four main parts of the loop, right? You have an intrusive thought, or a what if thought, a doubting thought about something that produces anxiety in the body, or activates the nervous system. You do a compulsive behavior that then calms you down instantly, and then a loop builds. The more you engage in that behavior, the more the thoughts come. The more the thoughts come, the more anxious you get, and that loop just starts to go and go and go. So the good news, though, right, is that the only way that loop can exist is if you are engaging in all, or if all four of those components exist, right? Now, what the mistake most people make is they try to solve the thought or the feeling aspect of the loop, meaning they try to fight with their thoughts, or they try to make themselves not feel anxious. The problem is that by doing that, you end up engaging in compulsions, which paradoxically keeps the loop going. The only aspect of that loop that we all have actual control over is the behaviors, the compulsions, the safety behaviors, whatever you want to call them. And because of that, right, if we focus our energy there and really work at removing the compulsions, that loop can't exist. I tell people all the time, like, by definition and by diagnosis standards, you cannot have OCD if you don't do compulsions. right? Obsessive compulsive disorder. You need compulsions there for it to actually work. More importantly, if you're going to run a diagnosis, there must be obsessions and compulsions present, right? So because of that, though, we have the opportunity to break the loop. And I myself have wrestled with this personally, so I know how dark things can get in that loop, and I understand how powerful that loop can feel and overwhelming it can feel, and absolutely it can. But be that as it may, once we shift our attention to really working on the right aspect of that loop, what happens is that the thought happens, the feeling happens, and by not engaging in the behaviors, the nervous system begins to learn that it's actually safe. And there's nothing we need to do to actually, be safe, quote unquote. Right. So the behavior we're doing to try to, become safe or to eliminate the danger, we learn that that's not actually necessary. And then moreover, we learn that the thought actually isn't dangerous. And so our nervous system stops activating the fight or flight response. And for most people with OCD, this happens because you've had a fear in the past that you no longer fear, right? You've had something that you used to obsess about or you used to worry about, especially when you were children, that you don't worry about anymore, right? We all can have that. And if it can happen once, it can happen again. What recovery is, though, recovery is not the absence of thought, and it's not the absence of anxiety, right? Well, I think it's important to really understand, like when we're talking about recovery awareness, well, what is recovery? Recovery is your ability to notice this loop and to stay out of the loop. And the way that we stay out of the loop is by not engaging in behaviors. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have days where you don't have thoughts that are hitting, flooding your mind, especially during, heavy stressful times, a lot of emotion in the body. That's going to activate the mind. It just will. And that's okay. You're human. You're allowed to have that. You're supposed to have that. The same thing with feelings. It's like feelings are normal. Like I don't know. At one day I might do a whole bunch of research and figure out where we all came to the conclusion that having feelings of stress in the body is a disorder, because I don't know how we came to that conclusion, that a normal feeling is quote unquote abnormal. If you don't feel happy all the time, somehow that's abnormal. And it's like, no, it's like, you're a human. You have the ability to experience a whole spectrum of feelings on this earth. Same thing with stress. There's a whole spectrum and continuum of stress, all the way from little anxiety before you give a presentation to full-on panic attacks. And if you are experiencing those, I don't believe that means that there's something wrong with you. At least I don't say that about myself. Now, if it's just happening all day long, what it means is you're engaging in behaviors that are causing this loop to go, right? But by no means is the presence of an emotion a indication that you have a disorder. This is me, right? And again, there's people that don't agree with me. Cool. If you don't agree with me, it's okay. It's okay. But I'll tell you, one of the problems with anxiety and OCD is that because we think anxiety is bad, we try to get rid of it. And that causes us to do compulsions paradoxically. But what if you didn't treat your anxiety like it was bad? What if you didn't treat the feeling of stress like an intruder, or it was invading, or that you're something wrong with you for feeling it? It's like, what if you just went in with the belief and the understanding that, I have feelings because I'm human. I know it's like, and I know these ideas might sound radical. And to some people, they really sound radical because they challenge narratives that have been perpetuated for a long time that I just don't think are true. And so when we talk about Recovery Week, what we're talking about is that you have the ability to stop your behaviors. And if you stop your behaviors, that wheel can't spin. And if that wheel can't spin, your nervous system will calm down and you will reach a state of homeostasis. It is inevitable. It will happen. It can't not happen. Right? Because you're not reinforcing the loop. Now, the trick is that most people engage in mental behaviors, and that's I'd say the thing that keeps 90% of people stuck without really realizing it is all the mental behaviors they do. So all the things like rumination, mental reviewing, analyzing, right? Thought blocking, thought suppressing, right? Just go through the whole gamut. That's why we teach the AAA response, at Restored Minds, is because I think focusing on those first is the most important thing, and then removing the physical next. And so if you wanted to learn more about that, we have a guide down in the notes. There's also a 2-day workshop that I did that you have a link there too that you can enroll in. And then we have our full-on 12-week program if you really want help implementing it, like just very transparently. This is what we do all day, every day. But, it's when we talk about OCD recovery awareness, like that message is the one that I want to focus on today. That message is the one that I want to share with whoever wants to listen. And that if you are struggling, no matter how long you've been struggling, I've seen people that have been wrestling with this for 50 years without realizing it. And sure, understanding what OCD is, understanding that it's real, understanding all of that helps that initial step. And what it does, all that does though, is it helps you understand what you're experiencing, and then more importantly, giving you a path to recovery. It's not about over-identifying with OCD. Like, I don't identify as someone that has OCD. I did in the past. I was in that loop in the past, but that's by no means who I am. And it doesn't describe my current situation. I've let go of that, right? Do I have thoughts? Yep. And because I'm human. Do I have feelings? Yep. Have those too. Sure. Because I'm human. What I focus all my energy on is making sure that if I'm having racing thoughts, or if I'm having intrusive thoughts, or if I'm having doubting thoughts even, and then if I notice anxiety coming up in my body, that I'm not doing anything that's going to reinforce to my nervous system or brain that I'm actually in danger. And that by the removal of the safety behaviors, that loop can't spin. And if that loop can't spin, my nervous system is eventually going to learn that I'm safe. And that's really what this work is about teaching your nervous system, your brain, that you're safe already, So the message that I hope you receive this week, if you wrestle with OCD and anxiety, is that yes, it is very hard when you're in it. And yes, it is real. And if you're wrestling today, like, my heart goes out to you, because I've been there. And I understand what you're experiencing. But what I would say on top of that message is that recovery is possible. And you have to start with that belief within yourself, because there will be people that will tell you it's not. There will be people that advocate that, you're going to experience this the rest of your life. And if you believe that, and if you choose to anchor into that story, well, then you'll make that a reality. You get to choose your story here. Don't ever let someone set a limiting belief on you. Don't ever let someone tell you what they think is possible for you when it comes to your life, or your health, or your wealth, or just anything that you want out of life. There's always a solution to every problem that we encounter in life. And our jobs often are to find it. And then when we find it, it's our job to share it. And that's what I do now, right? I wrestled with this for years without understanding what I was experiencing. And so, what my mission right now is to share this message of recovery, and really, really promote that this should be your focal point. Yes, understanding what you have is a great first step, but now it's time to shift into where you want to go. And so that's what I believe, and that's what I wanted to share today. So I hope this message was helpful. And if you want additional resources, please check out the links in the notes below. You can also contact us over at Restored Minds if you have questions or interested in our program. And with that said, wish you guys a great week, and I wish you a fast and full recovery. Take care.